After the sad goodbyes for Lucy Westenra and her dear mother, Dr. Seward took care of all the important papers, and guess who was right there? Professor Van Helsing. Together, they started looking through all the documents Lucy and her mother had left behind. But wait, Van Helsing really wanted to see Lucy's own special papers. He even shared a secret. He was a lawyer, too, and his reasons for looking went far, far beyond just the law. Dr. Seward wraps up his important call to Mrs. Westenra's solicitor, and look! Professor Van Helsing is back. He's found some of Lucy's secret letters, notes, and even her diary. What a discovery! But he decides to keep them super private for just a little while. Then, a bit later, they go to see Lucy, who looks so beautiful, even in death. Professor Van Helsing carefully places some wild garlic and a shiny gold crucifix right on her, and then quietly leaves the room. Suddenly, Professor Van Helsing arrived in Dr. Seward's room with an astonishing request. He actually wanted Dr. Seward to fetch post-mortem knives so they could decapitate Lucy and remove her heart. Dr. Seward was absolutely horrified, but Van Helsing explained his reasons were deeply profound, connected to a solemn promise he'd made to Lucy. He pleaded for Dr. Seward's trust, despite the truly gruesome nature of the task. Dr. Seward watched, a little amazed, as a devoted maid quietly entered Lucy's death chamber. But the very next morning, what a shock! Van Helsing woke Dr. Seward with startling news. Their planned operation was off. The golden crucifix he'd carefully placed on Lucy had vanished during the night. Luckily, Van Helsing had already retrieved it from the maid, but now they simply had to wait. Wow! Mr. Marquand, Mrs. Westenra's solicitor, arrived to take charge of all the legal arrangements. He revealed to Dr. Seward and Van Helsing that Mrs. Westenra had actually known her death was coming, and she left her entire estate to Arthur Holmwood, a decision he had initially tried to prevent. But then, Mr. Marquand surprisingly expressed his relief at the outcome because it made the inheritance wonderfully simple. Arthur Holmwood arrived, his heart heavy with the double sorrow of losing his father and, so soon after, dear Lucy. Dr. Seward and Van Helsing carefully prepared the death chamber, even removing the flowers, hoping to soften the shock for him. Still deep in his grief, Arthur then asked Dr. Seward to accompany him to Lucy's side. There he broke down, his profound loss pouring out. And then a strange question formed. Could Lucy truly be gone? Her beauty in death was so striking, it almost seemed to defy it. Once Arthur had said his very last goodbyes to dear Lucy, the three men gathered to share a meal. Then, with just a tiny pause, Professor Van Helsing spoke up. He needed to ask Arthur for something very important. Permission to look through Lucy's papers and letters. He promised it was for a truly vital reason, one Lucy herself would have absolutely understood and approved of. Arthur, who trusted Van Helsing completely, gave his full heartfelt permission, even promising not to ask any questions until the perfect moment came. Dr. Seward finally rests in Arthur's room, while the watchful Van Helsing patrols the house, his eyes never leaving Lucy's coffin, still covered with wild garlic. Dr. Seward finishes his diary entry, thinking about how everyone is scattered now, and how lonely things feel. It truly feels like the end of a really big part of their story. Mina Harker, writing in her journal, recounts her journey alongside a sleeping Jonathan, pondering how much their lives have utterly transformed. Then, while they're sitting in Hyde Park, Jonathan suddenly grabs Mina's arm, absolutely terrified by a tall, thin man with a pointed beard. Mina instantly knows Jonathan recognizes him. It's the man himself, who they'll later realize is the Count, looking strangely younger. Mina worries terribly about Jonathan's fragile mental state and bravely resolves to uncover the whole truth about his mysterious journey abroad. Oh dear! Mina and Jonathan finally made it home, but it was such a sad return. Jonathan wasn't feeling well at all. Then a telegram arrived from Van Helsing with the most awful news. Mrs. Westenra had passed away 5 whole days ago, and sweet Lucy, she died just yesterday, and both were being buried today. Poor Mina's heart just ached with sorrow for everyone they'd lost, and especially for Arthur, who had lost so much. Dr. Seward carefully records the moment Arthur and Quincy Morris set off. He then describes Van Helsing's sudden, astonishing fit of hysterics right there in the carriage. Van Helsing later explains it's his king laugh philosophy, a super important way to let go when things are incredibly sad. He says his laughter helps him cope with the grim irony of Lucy's death and all those complicated transfusions, which he even jokes have made her a polyandrist. Dr. Seward can really feel it. Their whole group has scattered, and a deep, quiet loneliness now settles over everyone. He brings his diary to a close, knowing that Lucy rests peacefully in her family's tomb. He wonders if he'll ever even start another entry, marking such a poignant final chapter in his life. Oh my goodness! Something truly mysterious is happening in Hampstead. Little children have been disappearing, only to be found later with strange, tiny wounds on their throats, like a rat's bite. Every single child whispers about being lured away by a Bloofer Lady. And now that phrase has even become a popular game they play. The police are investigating, trying to figure it all out, and they're looking for stray dogs. An extra special report from the Westminster Gazette has just come out, revealing another unsettling incident in what folks are calling the Hampstead Horror. A child missing all night long was finally discovered. They were found way out on Hampstead Heath, tucked away under a prickly furze bush, looking so weak and thin. And just like the others, this child had that peculiar throat wound. They told the very same story, too, about being lured away by the mysterious Bloofer Lady.